Hello everybody! So today I'd like to do a quick tutorial over the family gloves pattern. This is a pattern you can find on my website, linked in the description below. And it includes 3 sizes, small, medium, and large, so you can work gloves for your entire family. Something to know about this pattern, you can knit it in plain stockinette stitch as shown in this example, or you can also add this simple ferrule detail shown here. And there are a few different charts included with this pattern. Something really nice about this pattern also is that the ferrule detail is only worked over this portion of the glove, where we don't have to worry about increases and decreases, or changing colors across the thumb gusset. So if you can knit a sock, you can very easily make this pattern, and I will be demonstrating how to make this specific example right here, including this ferrule detail. So let's move on to the materials. So the materials you need to work this project are yarn in 3 colors. Today I'll be using the yellow as my main color, the white as my color B, and the purple as my color C, as noted in the pattern. Also be needing a knitting gauge, just to make sure I'm working the correct size for my pattern, scissors, a scrap of waste yarn. In this case I like to use cotton because it doesn't stick to my sock yarn, stitch markers. For the finishing, I'll be needing some crochet hooks in a few different sizes. I like to use crochet hooks in a 1.9mm size and a 3.25mm size, as well as a tapestry needle when I have long tails to weave in. For my needles, I'll be needing 4 to 5 double-pointed US number 1 knitting needles. These are in a 1.25mm. And some optional materials that may come in handy are a US number 2 double-pointed needle for casting on a nice loose cast on, some additional double-pointed needles in a slightly smaller size. Here these are in a size US 00. And I also like to work the palm of my glove with a 9-inch circular needle, and that's what I'll be demonstrating today. But I will be switching to the double-pointed needles to work the fingers. So let's get started. So to start this pattern, we're going to use our main color, noted as color A in the pattern. And for a little bit of a better fit along the cast on edge, I like to use a US 2 needle to get a nice loose cast on. So with my slightly larger needle, I'm just going to start casting on using the standard long tail cast on. And for the size medium, as shown in this pattern right here, we are going to cast on 72 stitches as we would for our sock. So I have 3, 4, 5, 6, and I'll meet you back when I've cast on all my stitches. So I just finished casting on 72 stitches, and now I'm going to transfer these over to my US number 1 needles. In this case, I will be using just a 9-inch circular needle. I find it easier to work the palm of the hand. So in this case, this portion as well as the cuff, I find it easier to work on a 9-inch circular needles, and then switching to double pointed needles to work the fingers and the thumb. If you don't want to cast on to a slightly larger needle, you can just do this directly on your US number 1 using a stretchy cast on, but this is what I find works best for me. So now we're just going to slip all of our stitches, making sure we don't drop any onto our correct needles. And you'll notice I'm slipping multiple stitches at a time. I'm not doing it one by one, just to make the transfer of stitches a little bit quicker. Okay, making sure I'm not dropping any stitches. And here we are with our stitches on our needle. Okay, so now I'm going to start to knit. Gonna rearrange my work. Make sure that my stitches are not twisted. So make sure all the little purl bumps from my long tail cast on are facing me. They're facing up. And now I'm going to start my rib pattern. So in this example, I've worked just a simple 1x1 rib, but you can work any type of rib you want. This is a 2x2, 1x1, 3x3, whatever you'd like. So to start, make sure our work is nice and tight in our beginning stitches so we don't have a hole. I'm just going to work a 1x1 rib all the way across. Just like this. And if you're using a 9-inch circular needle, the first row may be a little bit difficult, just because the stitches aren't nearly as elastic in that first row. But they should very quickly change after you knit a couple of rows. Again, making sure I'm not twisting my stitches. And I'm just going to continue knitting my full row. So here I am after knitting a few more rows. You can see our pattern's already starting to take shape. And we're just going to continue working in this rib, 1x1 rib, until we have our desired length. For this example, I ended up working 30 rows of the 1x1 rib. However, you can work as many or as few as you like. The default is around 2 inches, and if you like a slightly longer cuff, anywhere from 24 to 30 rows, I would recommend in this gauge. So I'll meet you back when I've completed the cuff. So now I'm back after knitting 30 rows of the cuff, and at this point I like to add my stitch marker. So I follow my tail all the way up. In this case it's this nice knit row, and I'm just going to add one of these clip-on stitch markers to know that's the first stitch of my round. Next we are going to knit just in plain stockinette the next 2 rounds, and this is a setup before we work our thumb increases. We just want to make sure we're knitting every stitch all the way around. So I'm just finishing up that second round of stitches. You can see I just finished up 2 rounds of stockinette stitch. So now I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to start prepping myself for increasing for the thumb. To take a closer look on what it is we're doing, we are creating these increases here that are always in the same position to create this thumb. And you can see that they taper out, or they are pointing out in a direction away from the main body of the hand. So to prep for my increases, I'm going to take my stitch marker and I'm going to place it at my last stitch. So instead of marking the beginning of my round, I'm going to mark the end of my round. Just like this. So I know this stitch is always going to remain in the same position. So after positioning my stitch marker, I'm going to create my directional increases using what's known as make one left and make one right. So we're going to use this yarn right here between our 2 stitches. And the first thing I'm going to do is called a make one left. So it's going to be an increase that's pointing towards the left. And I work that by sticking my needle through that yarn between my 2 stitches. And then I'm going to just knit that through the back loop so that it's twisted. Again, inserting my left needle through that yarn between the 2 stitches. And then using my right needle, I kind of have to loop it around to get in the back loop. And then I just knit it. And you'll know it's make one left because the stitch will be twisted with the front leg of the stitch over pointing to the left. Next, we're just going to knit 2 stitches. And now we're going to take our second stitch marker and place it on the following stitch. And here we're going to make a make one right. So to do that, again, we're going to use that yarn between our 2 stitches. But this time, instead of going from the front, we're going to come in from the back. Pick it up as if we were coming from the back. And I find it easier if I kind of pull through the front so I can make a little kind of loop of yarn. And I stick my right needle from front to back like this and knit that stitch. And again, our twist in our yarn, you can see that front leg is pointing towards the right side. So those are the increases we use for the thumb gusset. And the rest of the round, we're just going to work in plain stockinette stitch. So we're coming up on our thumb increases. And for the next 2 rows, we're just going to knit in plain stockinette. So we're going to knit our new increase stitch, knit the 2 stitches in between, knit the other increase stitch, and then knit all the way across. So we're coming up on our second round of stockinette stitch after our increases. You can see our stitch marker is over this stitch. We're going to knit that. And if we look at our increases, we can actually see the number of rows of stockinette stitch that we did. And this is really helpful for keeping track of what rows we worked. So we have 1, 2, and a little twist at the very bottom for our increase row. And if we ever get lost in our work, we can always just count our knitting to figure out where we are. So after those 2 plain rows of stockinette stitch, we're going to work our increase round again. So now we're going to make another make one left. And for that, we're going to insert our needle again from the front and then knit through the back loop. Again, making sure our twist is pointing towards the left. And knit across the 4 rows now in the center, right before our stitch marker. So now, in between our increase stitch and that stitch marker, where we put our stitch marker previously, we're going to go from the back, lift up that yarn from the back, and make our make one right. This time we're going to knit through the front, just like so. And our twist, that front leg is pointing towards the right. Now we're going to knit all the way across again. So we just finished that increase round and we can already start to see our thumb gusset taking shape. We have 1 increase here, another one here, and we can sort of see those twisted stitches marking the increase rounds. So we are going to continue that pattern of increase round and 2 rounds of stockinette until we have 9 total increases per side of our thumb gusset. So to show a little bit better an example, you can see it forms this kind of V shape once we make it flat. And we can start counting our increases. We have these little twists where our increases happen. So we see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So we're going to continue until we have 9 increases per side of our thumb gusset, or 20 stitches total within our thumb gusset. So, 9 per side, that's 9 times 2, that's 18 stitches, plus the 2 we started off with in the center. That's 20 stitches all the way across in our thumb gusset. Making sure we're ending with those knit 2 rows. So I just finished knitting the thumb gusset. We have 9 increases on each side of our thumb gusset for a total of 18 increased stitches. And then plus the 2 stitches we started off with, we have 20 stitches here making up our thumb gusset. And as usual, we're also ending with our 2 knit rows. So this is our last increase, and then we have 2 stockinette stitch rows. So now, starting off our new round, I'm going to slip all of the thumb gusset stitches, all of those 20 stitches, onto some waste yarn using a tapestry needle. And here I'm just going really slowly, making sure not to split the yarn. Just like so. Okay, our last stitch. Pulling my waste yarn through, and I'm going to discard this over. Okay. Now I'm going to get ready to knit again. So this time, before I knit, I can't just knit across here. We're going to have a slight gap. So to make up for the 2 stitches in our thumb gusset, we're going to cast on 2 stitches. And we're going to do that with the twisted cast on. So we just take the yarn, twist it, and slip it on our needle to create 2 stitches. Once more, we take the yarn, we twist it, put it on the needle, that's 1 stitch increased. Take our working yarn, twist it, put it on the needle, and here we've created 2 stitches with the twisted cast on method. And now for this next row, we're going to knit all the way across. Just working in plain stockinette stitch. So here I am back at the beginning, and you can see where we cast on those stitches we have a little bit of a gap just because these stitches aren't exactly super elastic. But we're just going to knit across them as well. And that gap is going to close up. So we want to knit them through the back loop, not through the front as we normally would. Otherwise, we're going to undo the twist. And we're just going to knit across one more time of plain stockinette rows. Okay, so we're back around where we started. I'm going to actually remove these 2 stitch markers. I'm going to keep this one here just so I know where the end of my round is. Knit that row. And from this point out, we can actually knit all the way across our stitches and create a plain stockinette stitch glove. As we would in this example, we would just knit all the way across. For the size medium, we would knit an additional 24 rows before starting the shaping of the fingers. However, if you want to work a color work ferrule border in this area, this is where we would start our color work. So if you'd like to work the color work pattern across the hand, please skip to part 2 of the tutorial where we cover that portion of the project. Otherwise, work 24 rows of plain stockinette as denoted in the pattern, and then skip to part 3 where we work the fingers. Thank you for watching part 1 of this tutorial, and I hope to see you for more videos. As always, if you'd like to support my channel, please like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for watching.